Hello everyone, welcome back to another review. Today, I'm going to be reviewing what seemed to be the most popular anime and anime arc of 2023, the Shibuya incident from Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. I'm so excited to talk about this entire arc as I have a lot of thoughts, so honestly, let's just jump straight in. First, let me quickly explain my color ranking system. If you've seen my other videos and you don't need this explanation, skip to this time code. But for new viewers, I find it easier for me to personally rate TV shows by a color grade rather than individually giving each episode a number score. When I talk about each episode, the episode title will come on screen in the color of what I rated it, and those ratings are as follows. Purple, legendary, absolute peak fiction, I love everything about it. Blue, fantastic, I love mostly everything about it. Cyan is above average, pretty good, has fun moments and you like a lot about it. Green, good, could be slow and have average moments but you enjoyed it. Yellow is mid, probably slow or had moments you disliked, could just be boring. Orange is bad, I did not enjoy my time watching this. And lastly, red is hot garbage, I hated watching this and I never want to watch it again. One last thing before we jump in, have you ever seen those TikToks where people give a list of takes that get progressively hotter? Well, I have a list of 10 takes about the Shibuya incident that I will be sharing throughout the video as they come up in the story. Each take has a different number rating, meaning the 1 out of 10 take is a cold, common take, and the 10 out of 10 take is a hot take that y'all will probably want to have a word with me about in the comments. Alright, so let's hop straight into the Shibuya incident. The Shibuya incident was a violent confrontation which occurred in June 1946 between rival gangs near Shibuya Station in Tokyo, Japan. Wait, what? That's not the right thing? It's Like That serves as the calm before the storm of the Shibuya incident. This episode isn't that special, but it serves its purpose as the final little happy moments before Shibuya extremely well. It's an episode that knows its purpose and it does exactly what it needs to do. The first half of this episode revolves around our main trio just hanging out and wingmanning one of Yuji's old classmates. However, after that we find out the mole that was giving information to the curses was Mekamaru. He made a pact with Mahito and Kenjaku where in exchange for information, Mahito will use his idol transfiguration to repair Mekamaru's body. Well, it's time for this pact to be met, but both parties are basically ready to fight as soon as the pact is met. So Mahito repairs Mekamaru's body and Oh no, he's hot! Yeah, I've got to say something about this. I have never in my life seen a show where every single character across the board is this hot. It started harmless enough, but then I couldn't help but notice it every time a new character is introduced. It starts getting so bad. Like, for example, look at this old guy, Naobito. You know, objectively, most might say he's not that hot. Then this man takes his shirt off and he's the most ripped human you'll ever see. Don't even get me started on the fan service as well. I know who this is for. You can't fool me. I just have a feeling that Mappa is choosing to animate some of these scenes with one hand. Anyways, Mekamaru immediately dips, hops into a gigantic mech, and the episode ends with the start of Mahito versus Mekamaru. Evening Festival is awesome. This episode mainly consists of the fight between Mekamaru and Mahito and the very beginning of the Shibuya incident. The fight between Mekamaru and Mahito is incredible. I love the story that they tell with this fight. Mekamaru fighting to see his classmates again, mainly Miwa though, and trying to find a way to tell Gojo about the Shibuya incident before it can happen. While on the other side of things, Mahito is just having a fun time and toying with Mekamaru for a lot of this fight. It's time for me to unleash my 8 out of 10 take right now, one that will definitely catch me some flack. This is my favorite fight of the entire arc. I think that in a season filled with incredible achievements in storytelling and animation, that this is one of the highlights. The fight ends with Mahito killing Mekamaru and we see Miwa talking to Mekamaru's original robot body, not knowing that he has died. The episode ends with the veils going down and Shibuya and Gojo arriving. The episode appropriately titled The Shibuya Incident is actually just fine. This is just a solid setup episode. We see the beginnings of Gojo's fight with the disaster curses and we see Yuji fight the grasshopper curse. But for the most part, this is ironically probably the most uneventful episode of the arc. Shibuya Incident Gate Open is awesome. This episode contains the entire fight between Gojo, Jogo, Hanami, and Choso. A lot of O's there. This fight is absolutely amazing though. Gojo destroys Hanami in a great moment. We see our first real glimpse of Choso, which is nice. The highlight of this fight, however, is easily Gojo's 0.2 second domain expansion and subsequent curse murder any percent speedrun. After that entire moment, Kenjaku pops up and shocks Gojo, who obviously thinks that this is Geto. This ends up trapping Gojo, and we get the reveal that Kenjaku is piloting Geto's body to use and abuse his curse technique. A fantastic ending to this episode. Pandemonium is solid. Mechamaru reveals himself to have set up drones as a backup plan in case he had died. He lets Yuji know that Gojo has been sealed, and Yuji leaves to go tell the others. We end up seeing Haruta for the first time in this arc as he's just running around outside attacking the people in suits as he was told to do. This brings us to our 5 out of 10 take. I love Haruta and his purpose for this arc. I think he's a super fun and underrated foil, and when he's on screen being a giant goofy asshole, I'm having a great time. His death later on is a great ending to his character, but I wish we could have gotten more of him. Anyways, this episode ends with Nanami going off to help, leaving Ino, Yuji, and Megumi outside to help try and lift the veil. Seance is a solid episode as well. This episode is basically just Inu, Megumi, and Yuji fighting this group of 3 people that are guarding the veil. This fight is completely fine, but nothing special in my eyes, and the highlight of this episode is definitely the return of Toji, but besides that, I don't have much to say about this one. Dull Knife is a super fun episode. This is the episode where we see Nobara versus Haruta. This entire fight is such a double-edged sword for me. While I previously mentioned that I love Haruta and seeing him get some fun content here is great, on a narrative level, not quite sure how he wins this fight. Nobara getting caught off guard by him and losing this fight and literally is going to die if Nanami doesn't step in is terrible writing as far as I'm concerned. However, this does lead to the previously mentioned Nanami showing up and rolling Haruta in one of my favorite scenes of the arc. Seeing the cocky-ass annoying villains get their shit rocked like this is always one of the best tropes in media, and this one's done very well. This episode ends with the start of the Choso-Yuji fight, and it starts in a crazy-ass way. Never in my life have I seen the definition of "it's on sight" put to screen this well. Choso does not even let Yuji's feet touch the ground before sending a blood beam straight for this man. It's nuts. Red Scale is another one of many episodes that dedicates its entire runtime to a fight. This time, it's Choso versus Yuji, and this fight's awesome. I know that saying it's another one of my favorites doesn't really mean a lot, considering there are legit like 10 plus all-time great fights in this arc. But hey, this fight is one of my favorites. However, this fight presents one of my issues with this arc, that being the narration. Obviously, in anime, we have characters spouting off internal monologues telling us what they're planning or doing, and that's completely fine. It's not the greatest writing trope in the world, but I've come to accept it and it doesn't present any issues with me. However, when we start getting a third-party narrator come in and start explaining to us the different characters' techniques and what they're doing, that's when we create some problems. I personally feel if your shit is too confusing and or complex that we need to bring in a third-party narrator to explain things, something went wrong in the writer's room. However, this fight is awesome nonetheless, and it ends with Choso realizing Yuji is his brother, and Choso has a manic episode and disappears for the next several episodes. Fluctuations is another fun episode. This episode mostly consists of the little group of Nanami, Maki, Naobito, and Megumi versus Dagon. This fight is good, but in comparison to the other fights in this arc, it's actually pretty average. We also see Mei Mei and Wee Wee fighting off the smallpox deity, and here comes my 1 out of 10 take. Yeah, Mei Mei, awful human being. Pretty cold take with this one. Grooming your little brother is some interesting behavior. Anyways, episode ends with Toji coming through Megumi's domain and preparing to fight Dagon. Fluctuations Part 2 kicks off the best stretch of episodes in the arc. This episode begins with Toji versus Dagon, which is my second favorite fight of the arc. Toji mollywops Dagon, and it's an epic fight to watch. After Toji kills him, he and Megumi literally take it outside, and that's when Jogo appears and third parties the group harder than me and my friends got third partied on Fortnite last night.
First one down.
Jogo definitely camps in corners on Call of Duty as well. Anyways, this brings me to my 2 out of 10 take. Maki was very underwhelming this arc. After Season 1, Maki was my favorite character behind Mahito, and she doesn't really do much of anything in this arc and is taken out of action relatively quickly. Anyways, Jogo finds the twins messing with Yuji, and Jogo proceeds to feed his 10 fingers to Yuji. Sukuna comes out, and this scene is absolutely incredible. We end up seeing Sukuna's true passion as a barber here, as he gives Jogo a haircut when he doesn't bow fast enough. The twins beg Sukuna to kill Kenjaku in exchange for another finger. Sukuna doesn't really care though, and he shares his passion as a barber with them as well, as he gives them both a little off the top. Sukuna then tells Jogo if he can land a hit on him, that he will assist Jogo and his group, and that's how we wrap this episode up. Thunderclap is another amazing episode. We kick things off with Megumi vs. Toji, which is a short but solid fight. This fight ends when Toji asks Megumi for his name, and after he responds with Fushiguro, Toji kills himself. This is actually a pretty great end to his character in my eyes, and Toji was just a super solid and well-written character in general. The rest of this episode consists of Jogo vs. Sukuna, which yet again, another great fight, but here's a genuine question I have for you guys that I'd like to know your answers to in the comments. At what point do you guys get sick of fights like this? Because for me personally, I know I'm on a low point on the spectrum where after seeing like 3 or 4 fights in a row like this, I start experiencing a bit of burnout. So I'm curious where you guys fall on the spectrum, because this is the point where I started to get a little exhausted from the constant episode-long fights. Anyways, Sukuna kills Jogo, and Jogo gets a legitimate, sympathetic death scene, which is just funny. Thunderclap Part 2 is another episode with an episode-long fight. Now, I would like to say I did binge this, so I would assume for the week-to-week viewers, this issue that I have is a non-issue. But yeah, the burnout seeing fight after fight really hit me here. I did not let that impact my scores or enjoyment though, because this fight between Sukuna and Maharaga has legitimately some of the best animation ever put to screen. However, I do think this fight is pretty overrated in general. To me, the fights that I like most are ones driven by the character work. Mekamaru vs. Mahito, and later, Mahito vs. Yuji are examples of this. These fights give us a lot of character work to be invested in, and there are clear and legitimate stakes. While this fight between Sukuna and Maharaga most definitely has stakes, I'm not invested in either of these characters. Maharaga isn't a character, it's just a giant monster. As for Sukuna, he is a character, but he's also a genocidal maniac. So who am I supposed to root for here? I guess Maharaga, since he's fighting the big bad of the series, but why would I want to root for a character, and I use that term loosely, I know literally nothing about? While this fight is filled with spectacle and some breathtaking animation, narratively, I think it falls a bit flat. That is, until Sukuna nukes the place. Yuji gets his body back and naturally feels a bit upset. This is definitely the best moment of this episode. Haruta also dies here after running into Sukuna's domain, which makes me, as one of probably 5 Haruta fans, a bit sad, but his death is super funny and fitting. That leads us to Right and Wrong, my favorite episode of the arc. Nanami is wandering through the subway when he stumbles upon a room full of transfigured people, and he just goes on a killing spree. This entire sequence of him mowing through the room, intercut with his vision of himself in Malaysia, is absolutely incredible, and maybe my favorite moment of the entire arc. Mahito ends up sneaking up on Nanami though, and places his hand on his back. Yuji comes across this just in time to watch Nanami's final moments, leaving it all up to Yuji as Mahito kills him. We can go ahead and hit my 3 out of 10 and 4 out of 10 takes right now as well. The 3 out of 10 being that Mahito is without a doubt the best villain of this arc, and the 4 out of 10 being that Nanami's and later Mahito's deaths and conclusions to their arcs are fucking perfect. These two are probably the best 2 written characters in the entire show for me. I don't have a single issue with the arcs of these two, and I think that they were masterfully written and executed on screen. This leads us to Yuji vs. Mahito, which is an incredible fight. Mahito taunts Yuji about Junpei during the fight as well, which is great. And this episode does end with us seeing that Nobara is elsewhere fighting a clone Mahito. And that leads us to Right and Wrong Part 2, which I am not the biggest fan of personally. Let's talk about Nobara, because she's the main root of all my problems with this episode. I personally think her writing is really bad. I could not believe they killed the only female character of the main trio before she got a chance to have an arc or really do anything. Let's run through Nobara's character real quick, shall we? Her first battle, she is forced to take the child hostage and was in major trouble had Yuji not intervened and saved her. At the battle at the school, she is quickly injured and escorted away. At the Kyoto event, she is taken out by Mai, of all people. She finally gets a win during the Season 1 finale when she takes down the Cursed Womb Death Painting. Kicking off Season 2, she is recommended to be a Grade 1 sorcerer by Toto and Meimei. I don't know how that happened, but okay. While not officially a grade 1 sorcerer, this is some extremely high praise, and this means they think she can handle grade 1 and even some special grade curses. So naturally, in her next fight, she loses to Haruta and has to be saved by Nanami. Then of course, all roads lead to her fight with Clone Mahito, which she somehow actually wins, and then he ends up killing her. Nobara, this entire series, has 0 arc, and we only learn about her personal stuff and backstory in the flashback directly before her death. I think her death scene's execution is actually really cool for the most part, however. The moment with the Mahitos running past each other being an incredible moment that makes your heart sink as you know what's about to happen. This entire sequence is my 7 out of 10 take, by the way. I think Nobara dying is narratively bad. I think the entire flashback sequence that we get also kills the pacing a shit ton, as it literally gives us 15 minutes of backstory for a character whose head is about to explode. I don't get this narrative structure of us learning about the character moments before death, but sure. One of the main defending points for this death is the fact that it's realistic and not everybody lives to get a character arc. But first of all, this is not real life, it is a narrative story. And second of all, there are ways to have a character die without themselves having an arc, but it gives an arc to other characters. Here's an example of that. Spoilers for Attack on Titan, but look no further than Sasha, a character that herself did not have an arc, but her death gave one to Gabby, Kaya, Mr. Broust, and Nicolo, and had lasting implications on our main characters. If your response to that is that her death has lasting implications on Yuji, then you'd literally be wrong, because when Yuji goes to fight Mahito again in the next episode, he thinks of Nanami, and does not even mention Nobara at all. Nanami's death was the perfect narrative death we needed to fuel Yuji, and Nobara dying shortly after without her character not having done anything might just genuinely take away from how brilliantly done Nanami's death was. Right and Wrong Part 3 is good. We see the return of Todo here, and we begin round 2 against Mahito, but honestly, this stuff is good. But the highlight of this episode for me is easily the conversation we get between Mekumaru and Miwa, which brings me to our 9 out of 10 hot take. I think that Miwa is the best written female character of the entire arc. I've previously stated why I think Nobara's writing wasn't great, and with literally every other female character besides Mei Mei taking a backseat in this arc, that leaves Miwa, the character that calls herself useless, to genuinely be the most well-written one. I love Miwa, and I think this final scene that she has with Mekumaru is amazing. This, to me, is a more emotional scene than Nobara dying, because we get genuine character moments in this conversation, and an amazing and heartwarming conclusion to Mekumaru's character.
大好きな人がいたんだ。どんな世界になろうと、俺がそばで守ればいいと思っていた。その人が守られたいのは、俺じゃなかったかもしれないのに。ミワ、幸せになってくれ。どんな形であれ、お前が幸せなら、俺の願いは叶ったも同然だ。
Like, it's just so fucking good, man. Incredible cinematography and music in this scene. Miwa then also using this as motivation to try and kill Kenjaku later is literally all it takes to make her the best written female of the arc in my eyes. Metamorphosis is amazing. The fight between Mahito, Yuji, and Todo continues. Mahito pulls a Gojo and pops a 0.2 second domain expansion. Todo is forced to cut his hand off to avoid being killed, and that brings us to his incredible sequence with Takada. Stuff like this is just so awesome, and I love when we get outlandish shit like this in anything. Todo ends up clapping Mahito's hand to teleport away, ending off that amazing sequence. However, the highlight of this episode, and the season as well, is the ending of this episode. Yuji beats Mahito, and we get this extended scene of Mahito in hysterics, running and pleading for his life as Yuji gives his "I'm you" speech. This is absolutely incredible. Seeing Mahito, the villain who toyed with everybody and killed for fun, gets the ultimate comeuppance, and now, when put in the same situation as he did to everyone else, he cries and begs for his life. It is the perfect end to this character. Metamorphosis Part 2 is another good episode. Kenjaku consumes Mahito, and we see Mei Mei and Wee Wee have fled to Malaysia, showing us that we can't have nice things. I do, however, love the juxtaposition of Nanami, the character who fought his ass off and died without heading to Malaysia, while the selfish Mei Mei just dipped out and went even though she really doesn't deserve it. We also get the scene where Miwa attempts to kill Kenjaku, which once again shows us we can't have nice things. And we get our first interactions between the returning Choso and Yuji here as Choso fights off Kenjaku. And this episode ends with the return of Yuki. Shibuya Incident Gate Close, our season finale, is pretty mid. This is my 6 out of 10 take. I think that this finale is underwhelming. Kenjaku unleashes his city-wide idol transfiguration and then dips. We then see the return of Yuta as he saves this little girl, and it's at this point in the episode where I looked at the time and realized we only have 5 minutes left. This entire episode flies by, yet also drags at the same time. We spend like 10 minutes wrapping things up with Kenjaku, and Yuki shows up, and she also doesn't do anything. However, the return of Yuta is great, and his line about being the one to kill Yuji is awesome and a great little cliffhanger. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those were my thoughts on the Shibuya incident. I think this arc was very good, and I definitely enjoyed my time with it despite some issues that I had. I'm very excited for Season 3 when it comes out in 2039, but you guys might be wondering, wait a minute, you never gave us your 10 out of 10 hot take. Well, I'll be diving deep into that take in my next video when I cover what I think is the best arc in JJK, the Hidden Inventory / Premature Death arc. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my 10 out of 10 take is that Hidden Inventory is better. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll return next time when I discuss Hidden Inventory. But until then, like, comment, and subscribe for more, and have a wonderful day.